We're going to talk some football now on the SportsMax Zone. The CONCACAF Nations League continuing Tuesday with action from Leagues B and C. In Group C action from League B, Antigua and Barbuda hosted the Bahamas. Meanwhile, Puerto Rico played away to Guyana. These were afternoon matches. International football correspondent Brent Sancho now joining us to recap the latest matches, even as we look ahead to action from League A, Group A, where group leaders TNT are scheduled to tackle Curacao. Brent, there were rapturous scenes at the Hasty Crawford Stadium Friday night as TNT overcame a 2-0 deficit to beat Guatemala by 3-2. How loudly is Angus Eve reacting or responding to his detractors?
Well, a lot louder than he was reacting in the games in, of course, the Gold Cup, where he was heavily criticized for some of the results coming out from that competition. Also, as you remember, coming into this phase of the competition, the Nations League, there was some criticism from some of the senior players. But I tell you what, when you win a couple of games, things are quickly forgotten. And there's a lot of sentiment here in Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, congratulations going out to Eve for many in the footballing segment, stating that, of course, the team seemed to have turned the corner. But as you know, Lance and Ricardo and Mariah, football is a very funny sport. And despite all of the triumph that we've seen over the last couple of games with Trinidad and Tobago, they still have a massive encounter tonight against Curacao. And of course, if results go against them in the other games, they may have won a lot of football games for nothing.
Yeah, talk to us about the victory, though, because from a sensational standpoint, it would have been all the fans would have asked for. I suspect that the fans would have been deflated for long periods in the match because TNT appeared as if they were losing the match. And to come up with such a gripping victory and a 19-year-old with a winning goal at 3-2 with that fabulous free kick, Nathaniel James, who, by the way, has now signed up for Mount Pleasant in Jamaica's Premier League. That was a sensational finish to the game.
Yeah, it certainly was a sensational finish. And I think a lot of the criticism that came Eve's way is the fact that the Trinidad team never played on the front foot. I think in this game that we're seeing highlights against Guatemala, they didn't have a choice, really, did they? Because they went 2-0 down very early in the competition and they needed to find something from somewhere. And of course, once that first goal went in, you started to see the belief. And look, this is a team that's playing with a lot of confidence and believe that they can win football matches. I think from a Trinidad and Tobago perspective, despite the fact going on against a spirited Guatemala team, they fought. And I think that essentially is what people want to see. They want to see Trinidad and Tobago playing front football, fighting for the badge, and of course, bringing the fans to their feet. And there was a lot of that in the Hasty Crawford Stadium on last Thursday.
Yeah, Brent, I had the opportunity to interview Rian Moore. Your assessment of what you saw from him on the weekend?
Look, he's been a kid that's always on the up and up. I think the argument, Mariah, is whether or not he's better off playing wide of a forward position or playing as the focal point. He showed in that game, and particularly in international football, where he can be a threat. I think if there was any criticism level at him, it would be that he needs to be fully involved and fully engaged in a game. He sometimes drifts away from it because when he does and when he is on his game, he is certainly a joy to watch. We saw him in the Ascension final where he dragged Defence Force across the line in the cup competition, in the Trinidad and Tobago Premier League competition final. And then we saw him again, of course, scoring goals for Trinidad, important goals leading up to the year before Gold Cup. So he's that type of player that when he's on song, he's certainly a joy to watch and certainly one of the better marksmen in Caribbean football.
Yeah, one of the trends coming out of this match is that the TNT Soca Warriors, they trailed in every statistic except the one that mattered the most, goals, of course, and that goal came in, peak time when we really, really needed it. Are you concerned about the numbers, the statistics, and us trailing?
Yeah, look, I think overall, yes, you would be concerned with the statistics. I'm sure Angus would argue that winning is the most important thing. But at the end of the day, at some point or somewhere along the line, there's only so much that we can ride our luck or so much that we can be so far behind in statistics. And in some of the key categories statistically is where we are trailing in. Possession, shots on goals, that sort of situation is where you really want to be dominating games, especially when you're home. And Trinidad certainly has not played like the aggressor. Some would argue, or many would argue, that we're not working with the same tools that we used to in years before. And that has been shown definitely in the Caribbean Club Championship results that we saw. Not one, but two Trinidad and Tobago teams, three actually, failed to progress out of the group stages. So you have to take everything into context, Mariah. And yes, we would want to lead in the statistics department, but from where I sit, I'm just happy to be winning football games as it stands right now.
Yes, statistically, Brent Sancho, Trinidad and Tobago, 7 goals in their 3 Nations League matches, 6 of them coming in the last 2 games, 3-2 over El Salvador and another 3-2 victory against Guatemala on Friday. When you consider that only Jamaica with 10 goals and Honduras with 8 goals have scored more than Trinidad and Tobago in League A action, then it says a lot, especially for a team that up to a month ago, part of the discussion was, listen, Angus Eve likes to sit back. We don't see this Trinidad and Tobago team scoring a lot of goals. That has changed the last 2 matches. What has been the reason for that in your estimation?
I don't think it's necessarily changed the way we've played and we've still sat back. I think what has happened, Ricardo, a lot of the goals that we've scored came from set pieces, and we've been very dominant in that particular stat because we have good players that have been getting their heads on balls. We have the young Nathaniel James scoring very good free kicks, and we've been able to score on dead ball situations. I think from open play, still, if there was a criticism level at the team, we don't create enough chances from open play, and that's a fact. We just haven't looked like a team that could break down the opposition. But we've been very disciplined in our approaches to scoring set plays, and we've seen it on a couple of occasions. We are a bit of a handful. When you talk to the likes of Rian Moore and Justin Garcia, some of those who have scored from set play situations, we do punch a significant punch in that area. And of course, Nathaniel James, as Lance rightfully mentioned, who's now with Mount Pleasant, can score when the ball in a dead ball situation in and around the box.
Yeah, of course, Trinidad and Tobago, I thought, quite unfortunate in the game against Guatemala on Friday to go behind by a 1-0 because that opening goal had a hint of offside in my estimation. I don't know what you thought about it, Brent.
Blatantly offside, not just a hint, but a huge size of mustard, ketchup and onions and that as well. It was a poor call by the officials. Look, we cover this program a lot and bash VAR and how bad VAR is. I tell you what, Trinidad and Tobago would have loved to have VAR in that situation. It was ridiculously offside. And look, I've seen some horrible calls throughout this Nations League tournament, and obviously that is as clear as you can see here in the picture that he is in an offside position. But we've seen some bad calls and officials, and obviously VAR not being used and the officials not being up to speed. I'm sure it's something, and I hope it's something that will be rectified as the games progress.
Yeah, and thankfully that did not wreck Trinidad and Tobago's chances because they still managed to win the game. So credit to the type of character that they showed on Friday. They'll need to do similarly against Curacao tonight. Let's have a quick preview of that game and what you think, one, the mindset will be going into the contest and what the approach should be against the Curacao team that the Soca Warriors beat by a 1-0 early in the campaign.
Look, it's a tough game, Ricardo. There's no doubt about it. It's not the perfect conditions. Of course, it's an older stadium, playing on AstroTurf, against a team really and truly has nothing to lose. And in the first fixture against Curacao did carve out a couple opportunities and would feel that they were unlucky not to go ahead. Coming into this fixture, they still have a lot of talent within their lines, and I'm very sure they would want to play the type of football that they get their fans on their feet. So for Trinidad and Tobago, I think they have to be very cautious in their approach. Yes, they may have to drop the lines a bit low and be a bit more compact. But at the same point in time, they have to be quick in transition and try to find their way. Playing on turf in a place like that is always difficult, and I think it's a very tough match for Angus Eve and his troops.
I want you to give us a prediction. Leje Williams counts himself as the prediction guru. But Brent, I think we all know that you are better at this prediction game.
Leger is a man that said Valverde is the best midfielder in world football, so I wouldn't go too far with what he's saying. I think Trinidad and Tobago will come out with a point minimum. I think this game would go to a draw. They've been very comfortable, Ricardo, defending, and give them credit for that. And there's a lot of confidence in the squad. So I do think a 1-1 draw is how it would end.
Yeah, I want to get your take on a broader issue, Brent. I've heard it being discussed locally in Jamaica about the format of the CONCACAF Nations League and dealing with specifically now with League A, where you have 6 teams in a group and you end up playing only 3 of them, I think, utilizing the Swiss format. Your take, because there are those who believe that when you're in a group, you really should be playing everyone in that group. And even if it's not home and away, but everyone at least wants to give a kind of clearer picture as to the best teams advancing.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that as well. I'm very disappointed when I saw the draw came out. And not just that, Ricardo. This is not just a Nations League for a Nations League's sake. There is a lot at stake for the winners. There's a lot at stake for the ones that progress, the opportunity to play in a Copa America. I think that's a big deal. And because of that, I think they should have given every team a fair chance. As you rightfully said, there are teams that are progressing that have not even played teams below them. So it does not give you a true reflection of what it should have been. And that's a big disappointment. I think they've missed a trick here, because even if you progress out of this, there's still an opportunity in March for the ones that lose at the quarterfinal level to play again, to get an opportunity to go to the Copa America. So why not fill that slot with games in the 2 forms of 6 group and let everyone play each other? That really baffled me when I saw it.
Yeah, very much the case. Of course, we had some Nations League matches earlier today, Brent. Well, currently, Bermuda and Belize locked at 0-0 after 14 minutes in that contest. Guyana beat Puerto Rico by 3-1, and the Cayman Islands got the better of the U.S. Virgin Islands by 2-1. A quick word on those completed matches: Guyana versus Puerto Rico, Cayman versus USVI.
I think there were some outstanding performances throughout the group stage, in the lower groups, of course in B and C. In particular, Guyana has done tremendously well, of course, in beating Puerto Rico twice. That's a tough opponent, both by a 3-1 similar margin in St. Kitts. Amari Glasgow, a young man that plays his trade and plies his trade in Chicago, certainly the standout pick for Guyana. And Jamal Shabazz has done a great job in keeping that team undefeated in that group. St. Lucia as well has done very well. They beat Guatemala at home in Castries, but of course went to Guadeloupe and lost the return fixture. But those 2 countries in particular has really punched above their weight and have done well. And it looks like Guyana is going to progress on to, onto the League A. And a game, of course, that had a lot of merit in it was Nicaragua demolishing Montserrat 3-0 yesterday. Another country, of course, that was demoted because of the usage of an illegal player. They seem to have not been impacted by that, and it looks like they will be back in League A action. So some very, very good performances coming out of League B, and some good entertaining football as well, that shows that certainly there are teams that are looking forward to making that step up to League A.
Yeah, fabulous performances from Guyana. 4 wins from their 4 matches, topping their group now with 12 points, ahead of Puerto Rico 6, Antigua and Barbuda 4, and the Bahamas 1. A quick word on Guyana's football, Brent, because a few years ago, I seem to remember a lot being put into Guyana's football, and also similarly to what we've seen with Jamaica, influx of overseas born players with Guyanese roots, of course, coming back to play for the national team. Has it taken a while for them to sort of break through, or is it happening in good time at the pace that you would expect?
Yeah, I think it's happening. It has always been a work in progress sort of scenario. The former coach, before Coach Jamal Shabazz, was not, of course, highly dependent on the foreign-based players coming in. Now, Coach Shabazz has come in and has opened arms and opened his doors for the influx of players coming in. And now we've seen that, and they've been able to extend those numbers And we've seen, of course, the results coming from it. I think one of the things that was disappointed for me, there was a lot of talk about the facilities in Guyana, and that's one of the reasons why they're playing in St. Kitts, being in a deplorable state. And that is something I think they should be concerned about, because they should not be playing their home games away. That being said, if they continue to build that the way they're building, I think they can get back on the track that they need to be on. Certainly with the fact that they're starting to attract players from overseas, and they still have, Ricardo, young players in Guyana that's doing well, and Amari Glasgow is a testimony to that.
Yeah, there was an outstanding result as well this afternoon. Antigua and Barbuda and Bahamas playing to a 2-2 draw, Brent. That match just up before the SportsMax zone started. A quick comment, though, on the Jamaica-Haiti game. I don't know if you'd have seen that match, but again, the Jamaicans scoring a lot of goals, and Hal Grimson continuing his winning streak in the CONCACAF Nations League as coach.
I think it was very important, before I go to the game, I think it was very important for Jamaica to win that group, particularly coming out of the disappointing semi-final loss to Mexico in the Gold Cup. It was so important for them to stamp their authority. Look, we could pick apart their performances, particularly against Haiti, because they seem to struggle against the Haitians, both in Jamaica and here in Trinidad as well. But they seemingly got the better of them because of the individual brilliance of the likes of the man that just crossed the ball, Antonio Gray, who's just striking the ball now. Those sorts of players have won Jamaica football games. Similarly, in the game against Grenada, they won them football games. So the individual talent has shone through for Jamaica. I think the collective still needs a bit of work. But I did say on this very show, guys, that it's still a work in progress. It started not too long ago. It's still gelling. I think the mere fact that Jamaica is dominating where they're supposed to dominate is critical. Once they make the step up, of course, into the quarterfinals, etc., that's where you want to see if real progression has been made.
Yeah, and of course, a lot of Jamaicans are excited by Damar Gray and how impactful he has been as a goal scorer for this Jamaica team, and how dominant he is on the ball. Whenever he gets the ball, he looks as if something is going to happen because of his dribbling skills and his pace. And a lot of people anticipating to the possibility of a Mason Greenwood turning out for the Jamaicans. That would look like a very flourishing front end for the Jamaican attack and coach Hal Grimson, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and look, and if they can sort things out to the back, I think they would be certainly a threat going into these rounds of games. And going back to Gray, I was able to see him in Grenada live and direct, and he's just an outstanding individual in terms of what he can do. One of the things I like about him, it looks like when he feels he can score or wants to score, he can go and score. And not many footballers in nations, you could say that. He picks the ball up and he does what he wants with it. And certainly from an offensive standpoint, Jamaica is well set and good. There are not many teams in this region can boast of the offensive prowess that Jamaica has. Again, the middle of the park and defensively is where my concern comes in for Jamaica. If they could tighten things up in that area, I certainly think they can go quite far in this Nations League. And maybe if they do qualify for the Copa, cause a few upsets.
Yeah. Okay, Brent, we're going to leave it there. Maybe we talk to you tomorrow when we review the Curacao, Trinidad and Tobago match tonight, and see how the Soca Warriors get on. Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Yeah, back with more on the SportsMax Zone after this.